Hello, so here we go again. Welcome back. I'm feeling much better, so thank you very much to all the people who put the comments, get well soon, all that sort of stuff, feel better. Thank you very much, much appreciated. In this particular video, I want to talk about an old mod which has been updated or re-engineered or whatever you want to call it. And this is the GMKFC Culk mod for Farming Simulator 15. Recently in one of my videos that I did for the actual GMK mod for Farming Simulator 15, somebody actually asked me, let me close this down so it's out of the way, there we go. Somebody actually asked me to have a look because they were trying to get it into a particular map that they were struggling to work out how to get it all done and everything else. So, and it kind of like brought me back to Farm Sim 15 when I really missed that particular mod from Farm Sim 15. Within Farm Sim 17 we just don't have that as a mod as such, not a downloadable mod like we do with the GMKFC Culk mod pack. So I wanted to have a bit of a play around. Now, I have actually done this in the past, had a bit of a play around. Somebody asked me to have a look at it, and we have a map now which is the HofBergmann map, which has a version of the GMK mod in it, built into the map itself. And as I say, I did try and have a play around with this, and I just couldn't really figure out what was going on. I read a couple of things on some forums, and there appears to be a problem with the actual mod itself, which has been fixed, but the actual fix won't be apparent until the newer version of the HofBergmann map becomes available, which to my knowledge isn't out yet. If anybody knows anything different, please let me know so I can have a look at that. But I did have a couple of minutes spare, so I wanted to have a bit more of a play around, see if I could get my head around what it was that was causing the problem, for me at least. I don't know the actual fault that was listed in the forums because people didn't go into too much detail on the actual problem with this version of the mod itself that's on the HofBergmann map. But in all the testing, once I did get it working, all the testing I did, it seemed to be working okay. So I don't know on that side of things what the actual problem with it supposedly is. Even if there is a problem, it may just be the case of somebody couldn't get it working and assume that there was a problem. I don't know. But anyway, so for this particular video, I'm just going to work with what I've got at the moment. So I'm going to be working, as I say, with this HofBergmann map, and I'm going to be using my converted Manchester map simply because it's one that I have which has got Culk on it, which I've added in myself. So for me to search around and try and find a different map with Culk on it or lime, I figured, well, I've got this one, so why not use it? But the actual process should be very similar. So let's just get into this. So if I open up the actual folder here for the HofBergmann map, what I want to do here is I want to be able to find the information that I'm going to need to take from this map and then bring over into the other map that I'm going to be working with today. So how do we do that? Well, for me, this is the easiest way of doing it, and that is to go into the map01.i3d through Notepad++. So I'm going to open that up like so. And then I'm going to search down to the actual foliage layers and sub-layers to find some of the information I need. You may be able to go through all of this and then pick out the parts that you need, but for me this is probably the easiest part, and I'm going to need to copy it over anyway, so I figured why not. So I'm just going to go into Control F, which brings up my find window, and in here I'm going to put in materials. I've done this many times so it brings it up already, but just type in their materials, and I'm going to go find next, which will bring me to the top of the materials section, and then find again to bring me down to the bottom. And then I'm just going to scroll down from here. Now you could also search for fertilizer, manure, Culk or compost, and that would probably bring you down to it as well, or just search for the Holm, whatever you want to do. For me, this is the searching through materials is the easiest way because I'm going to use that quite a lot of times, so for me that works the best. So what I want to do here is I want to take this information, because all of this stuff here you see in this foliage multi-layer and the foliage sub-layers for the fertilizer, manure liquid, manure, Culk and compost is all to do with this new GMK update or re-engineer, or whatever you want to call it, from the GMKFC mod pack from 15. So this is the information I need, so I'm going to copy this anyway. So with all of that highlighted, I'm going to just go Control C to copy it, and up in my Notepad++, if you're using a different text editor, then You know, you might need to work around some of the things I'm going to do here because they'll be slightly different, but the process should be very similar. So I'm just going to go up to here and I'm going to click New to open up a new text document, and I'm going to go Control V to paste that in over there, like so. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is search for the materials section that will be sort of linked to all of these photo sublayers. So I'm going to come across in my lines here. Let me just change the language here so you might be able to see it a bit better. There we go. So I'm going to just come into my photo sublayers here, and I want to come to the materials part, and our first material ID is 93. So I'm going to highlight that, and then again I'm going to go Control C to copy that. I'm going to come back over into the HofBergmann map, and I'm going to then double click in here and paste in the 93. I'm going to click on the match whole word only, so that it finds 93 on its own, not 93 integrated into any other number on the map, or in the i3D I should say, in Notepad++ here. And I know it's a material ID, so it's going to be above where I am at the moment. So this is, I don't know what version of Notepad++ this is, but they've made a couple of changes here. It's not, before you had to click page up, page down buttons down the bottom here. Now they've actually put it in two different find buttons up here. So this is find up, this is find down. So I'm going to just go find up like so, and we'll go again until we find our actual material section, which is where we are now. So we have our material section here, which is for our fertilizer whole material. I want to copy all of that, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to come back over into here. I'm going to come down, create a few lines, and I'm going to paste it in like so. So the next one I want to look at here is 598 for our manure. So I'm going to highlight that and copy it, come back over into the HofBergmann map 01 i3D here in Notepad++, paste it into my find box, and I'm going to click whichever way I need to go to get what I want. Sometimes you might need to go up or down, because they've made it somewhat easier now. Having to scroll back up to the top of the page is not really a necessary thing anymore, like I have mentioned in the past, in my past videos, because it's so much easier to just click the find buttons. Now that they've changed this and updated it, it's so much easier. So just click whichever way you want to go, up or down, until you find what you're looking for. So we have our material liquid. So I'm going to highlight all of the sections there, making sure that you get all of it and only what you need. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that section, come back over, and we'll paste that in down there like so. So the next number I want to find is for our manure, which is 321. So I'm going to copy that, come back over, paste in my number, and we'll go again. And it's just a rinse and repeat kind of situation. You just need to go through making sure that you're identifying the material ID, because 321 might be a file ID as well as a material ID. So make sure that you're copying over what you actually need for the appropriate part that you're doing, whether it be a material ID or a file ID. So in this case we're working with material IDs, so that's what I need to find. So again I'm going to copy over that, so we'll do the same again, paste it in. So the next number I want to find here is 282, so we'll do that one, and we'll go again. So again it was pretty straightforward there, so we'll do that, copy that line, bring it over, paste it in. Next number we need to find is 175, so we'll do that, we'll go back over, 175, and again straightforward enough. So we'll copy that one, bring that over, and paste it in. Perfect. Okay, so we've got our foliage multi-layers and our material IDs and material section. The next thing we need to find is our file IDs. So what I want to do here is I want to just go into the actual material ID section here, and under the file ID we have our appropriate numbers for that. So now I need to search for 130, so I'm going to copy that, paste that in. Again, file IDs are above the material IDs, so I know I'm going to be paging up, so I'll go find up, and again you might need to do this a couple of times just to get to where you need to be. There we are, so excellent. And it's worth just taking a note here, because instead of searching all of the numbers, we can see straight away here that everything I need is within a group. It's bunched up here. So I've got my foliage compost, foliage fertilizer, foliage caulk, foliage manure liquid, and foliage manure. Because they all end in whole, I know I'm in the right place. So here I can just literally take the whole section, don't need to search any further. So I'm going to go ahead and copy all of those, come back over, and I'm going to put them in up here, which is why I created the gap. And then we'll just close it in a little bit, like so. So now what we need to do is make sure we have enough of the appropriate parts. So we can see up here that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for our foliage sublayers, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for our file IDs. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for our material IDs. So fantastic, they all match in. So last but not least, what I need to do here is in this section, I need to find the density map ID. This is important. If you don't have this, none of this will work, which has got an ID of 129. So I need to copy that number, come back over, I'm going to paste in my 129, and I'm then going to just do a search and we'll just see what we find. Again, you may need to go page up or page down, depending on where you were in the i3D. In Notepad++, it could be either or either. So we have found that we now have our 129 in our file ID, which is what this number is referring to here. And we have our map01 GMKFC home density PNG. So I need that line. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that one. And we'll come back over and I'm just going to paste that in above all of the other file IDs. Now I've structured this somewhat how I want to be able to do it, so I can make my changes and just copy over the whole lot in one chunk. Well, I say the whole lot. I'm going to copy this chunk in as one, and then I'll copy all of these as one, and then copy over all of these as one. But I need to make a few changes first to the numbers and things like that, so that I don't confuse the new i3D that I'm going to be putting them into in the converted Manchester map. So I don't need this anymore. I've got all the information from here that I need, so I could go ahead and close that down. I'll close down my search window as well. Okay, so before I actually copy over all of this information, what I want to do is I want to find where all of the paths are for this, so that I can actually copy them over and bring them into the map that I'm going to be putting it all onto. So luckily we have all of our path file IDs here, so path names and whatever else for me to be able to find that. So if I come into my file ID section here, we can see that we have our GMK home density PNG, which is in the map01 folder. So if I just minimize that down a little bit. So on the HofBergmann map here, we'll just shrink that down as well. What I'll do here is I'll open up the Manchester folder here as well. So I can just copy them straight across. And we want to go into the map01 folder on the HofBergmann map. So I'm going to go into there, and we're looking for our GMKFC home density.gdm. The fact that it says PNG is irrelevant. It's just the way that the system works. It's actually a GDM, but it lists it as a PNG. That's fine. So this is what we're going to be looking for. So what I want to do here is in the map01 on the Manchester map, I want to copy that across. So I'm literally just going to go Control-C to copy it. We'll click in the Manchester one, Control-V, pasted it in. That's all you need to do. You don't need to convert it or anything else. If you are working on a 4x map, you may need to convert that using the actual GRLE converter. But because I'm working on a map the same size as the one I'm taking it from, I don't need to convert anything. There's no requirements there for me to do that. Okay, so now that I've got that over into there, I don't need to be in there anymore. So where do I go next? Well, let's go back to our Notepad++ text document here, and we're going to come down to the next section, which for our foliage layers, and we can see that they are all stored in a folder called foliage. Makes it really simple. So that's what we're going to be looking for next. So back on the HofBergmann map here, we're going to go back, maps, foliage, and we can see here that we have them listed right at the top here, very easy to find. So making sure we only copy what we need. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all we have. Making sure that they have home on the end so they all match in, because you might see one that's called foliage manure and click that one instead. But because it hasn't got the home on the end, that's not what we're looking for. Just make sure that you are choosing the ones that you actually need. So we're going to take those ones. I'm going to again Control-C to copy it. And I'm going to come back over into my Manchester map here. I'm going to go into the foliage folder and paste them in. Fantastic. Now I've got quite a lot on this Manchester conversion that I've done here, so there's obviously a lot more in this folder than there is on the HofBergmann one, but that's fine. I've added a few bits and pieces in here as additions. So the next thing I want to do here though is come back into my Notepad++ section, because if we remember rightly here, looking at these particular path file names, this was in a folder called just foliage, which, if we look here, is in the same place as our map01.i3d on the HofBergmann map. So there's no, though that particular path file name is perfectly fine for that map. But on the Manchester map, you can see here that the foliage folder is previous to my map01.i3d. So I need to make a couple of changes to the path file name there so that it can actually find that particular folder. Because it's a folder previous to the map01, what I need to do here is I need to put ... and then / into there, so that it knows, it tells it to look prior to the actual folder that it's in, and that's the way that it will be able to locate that particular folder. So we'll just paste that into all of those like so. Excellent. So we've copied over our density, and we've also copied over all of the foliage layers as well, so fantastic, we're getting somewhere now. So for now, what I can do is I can go into the HofBergmann map, and the last thing I want to do before I close that one down is I want to come into the scripts folder, and I want to copy over the mod itself, the GMKFC _mod.lua. So I'm going to go into my scripts folder on the Manchester map here, wherever I put that, there we go, and I'm literally just going to drag that across and copy it over. Done. So I don't need that particular folder open anymore. Before I forget, because I've got all this information here, I know it's there, I could come back to that. You can do this however you want to do it. You might want to get all this into the map01.i3d first, but I find that while I'm here, I'm going to make my changes to the moddesk.xml because I've got this information here. It's my reminder that I still need to do that. Whereas if I start to do this now, before I do my changes to the mod desk, I will probably more than likely forget to do it. So I'm going to do it now while I'm thinking about it. So I'm going to come down to my scripts section, my extra source files, and I'm going to make a copy of this one, this entire line, and then I'm going to paste that in like so. I'm going to go back into my scripts folder, and I'm going to then highlight the text that I want to copy for the GMKFC _mod, and I'm going to copy that, come back into my mod desk, double click in the duplication that I made for the farm silo there, and I'm going to overwrite that with this particular text. Excellent. And save. We're done. I don't need to make any further changes there, and as you can see here, I have actually got Colk on this particular map, which is why I've chose it, because that's what we're going to test later on. Okay, so we now have all of our parts for the actual map01, but first of all I need to make a few changes, because you can't have duplications of the same numbers in the map01.i3d. Because I've taken these from another map, obviously 129 for the density map might already exist on the Manchester map. The file ID 134 and so on might already exist, and if we were to copy it over as it is, it would then cause a conflict and other things would stop working. We don't want that, so we need to make a few changes. So what I'm going to do here, the easiest and simplest thing to do is, previous to all of the numbers, you can do this however you want, change the number to whatever you're comfortable with, but for me it's easier to just add 100 to the beginning of every number that you have that you need to change. So we're going to do the density map ID first. I'm just going to grab a drink, so just bear with me. Sorry about that, very dry throat. So as I was saying, I'm going to add 100 to all of the numbers at the beginning of all the numbers that I need to change. So we've done that one there, so with that highlighted, I'm going to go Control-C to copy the 100 so I don't have to type it every time. And we're going to come down to our foliage sublayers and then come over to our material IDs, and then I'm going to make the change there as well. So I'm just going to add 100 to all of the material IDs. So we'll do that like so. So we've done all of those. There's a couple of things we need to change, or at least one thing I need to change in there, but I will do that once I get into the map, and I'll show you why we need to do that then and not now. So I've made my changes there, so I'm going to make my changes to all of these as well by adding in again the 100. You could add this at the end if you felt that was better. I'd put it at the beginning, doesn't really matter. As I say, you can change that to whatever you want, as long as it's a bigger number than you've already got in your map01 i3d or map02 or whatever it's called for the map that you'll bring it into. So we'll make our changes to all of these as well. like so. Excellent. We'll do these ones as well. So we've got material, that one there, that one there, that one. So we've got our, that one, material IDs all done. Got all our file IDs done. And we've got all of these ones done down here as well. Excellent. Okay, so now we've got all of those set up and the way we want them, so I'm going to minimize that. Then I'm going to come into my map 01 i3D here in Notepad++ for the Manchester map that I'm going to be bringing it all into. So first of all, I'm going to start with my file IDs. So I'm going to highlight the entire section, copy that. We'll come over into the map 01 i3D for the Manchester map here and paste it in. Next, I want to bring over the material IDs, so I'm going to highlight all of those sections, copy that, and we'll then do our search for materials, so it brings me to the bottom of the materials section. You could put it at the top if you wanted to. I always find it easier to put it at the bottom because the next part that I'm going to be looking at is just below this, and it makes it so much easier for me to just be able to scroll down to it like so. So for me, again, you can put this at the top or the bottom. It needs to be under the actual foliage multi-layer section for your actual crops. So, but it doesn't, it needs to be below that but above the detail layer. So you can put it below this one or below this one. I'm going to put it in here. So I'm going to need to copy over the foliage multi-layer section. So we're going to copy that and then come back over, paste it in, done, perfect. Okay, so I can close that one down. Right, the next thing I need to do here, a couple of things I need to do here, is I need to actually have a look at the block shape ID, because the block shape ID from the HofBergmann map was set to 1. But because we're dealing with a holm, this is the way that it's been set up, we need to match that to what we've got on our map for our holm already set up for our potato holm and our sugar beet holm. Doesn't matter which one you choose because they're going to be the same. So if we come across, we have our potato one up here, which is 34, and our sugar beet, which is also 34. So we can copy that, and then we've come down to, this is why I put it at the top, because it's so much easier to just come to it. If you've got a lot of extra foliages on the map, then if it's all the way down here, you're doing a lot of scrolling backwards and forwards and whatever else. So here I can just literally take it from there and then bring it down to my GMK stuff and paste it into the block shape ID here. Done. So we've now got all of our block shape ID set up for our GMK parts, the fertilizer, manure liquid, manure, coke and compost. Excellent. So we're all set up there. Fantastic. So now that I've now got all of that set up, the next thing I need to do here is if we actually come back up to our materials section here, we can see we have a custom shader ID of 56. This is not what we want. Well, it may be, but we need to check it on this particular map. And this refers to our windrow shader. And what we need to do is actually find the one that we've got on this map and match it to what we require. So what we need to change this number to. So I'm going to go Control F again. And if I come down to here, we've got our windrow foliage shader. That's what we're going to be searching for. So if you want to pause the video there and just type that into your search box, windrow foliage shader. And I'm going to go find up, and then if it brings us to our file ID for our shaders, windrow foliage shader, which is 80, not 56. So I need to copy that number there. And then I'm going to go back to my materials section and come back down to the bottom. And I'm going to change all of the 56s here to 80 for our windrow foliage shader. This is important. If you don't do this, then things won't work the way they're intended to work. Okay, so now that we've got all of our parts in there and they're all set up how we need them to be, we can go ahead and save. I'm going to close that down. I'm going to leave this open for the time being, just in case I need to come back to it. Shouldn't need to, but you never know. If you close it down, obviously, and don't save it, then you'll have to go through the whole process again if you've missed a line of taking it from the HofBergmann map. So it's worth keeping that up there just until you're sure everything is working the way you intended it to. Okay, so now that we've got all that set up there like so, I'm actually going to open up the map in Giants Editor. I'm going to grab another drink while that's doing that, so just bear with me. Okay, so it's best to find an area that's going to give you a pretty good sort of representation of the actual display on screen sort of thing. If you were to do this on a field, it might not come out very clear, so it might be worth finding something like this, a lighter shade sort of concreted area or whatever else, or asphalt or something like that, that you can actually put this down in Giants Editor at least, so you can actually see what is going to be, you know, displayed for you. Just makes it easier to see it all. So I'm going to bring up my terrain editing window. If you don't have this open, just go into Window, Terrain Editing. Doesn't really matter about all this stuff. I'm going to leave it on the round brush, that's fine. And we're going to come down to our foliage layer painting, because this is where it's all been set up as. I'm going to come down, I'm going to click on the drop down, and I'm going to come down, and the reason again I put it at the top here and not down the bottom in the actual i3D, because where you actually list stuff in the i3D will represent where it's listed within this particular drop down. So as you can see here, it's quite up the top. If I was to put it at the bottom of the section above the detail layer, I would have to scroll down much further. Not really a problem, but for me this works much better. Okay, so first one I'm going to look at is the fertilizer hole, so I'm going to click on that. I'm going to come up to my terrain foliage paint mode, and I'm going to click in the map, and there we go. We have our fertilizer on the map. That's what it will look like. So we'll get rid of that one. Now the way this works, if you were actually to click on the manure liquid, it would still show 0. If I was to then click on it again, I would actually get fertilizer again. Because they share the same density map, it's not about the actual drop down as such. As long as you click one of these, whether it be the fertilizer, the manure liquid, manure or bulk compost, then it will be down to the actual foliage channels that will display what you're actually looking for. So the list goes fertilizer, manure liquid. So the next one will be channel 1 will give me manure liquid. So if I click on the map there, you can see the change on the map. And like I said, it doesn't show up very well because of the actual texture, and I will show you the picture of the texture, and we'll have a play around with those as well and change them, because I don't particularly like these ones, so I'm going to change them to something that for me works much better, is a much better visual representation. We'll look at that in a little bit. So the next one we're going to look at here is the manure hole, which will then be channel 2, making sure that you untick the previous channels. We're only going to be selecting one channel at a time. So this will be the manure. So again, we're going to click on the map, and there we go, we have our manure. That's what the manure looks like. That looks pretty good to me, so I'm going to leave it as it is. I'm not too fussed with that one. That actually looks quite nice. It's not overpowering or anything like that, so for me that works quite well. Okay, so the next one we're going to look at here below our manure is the caulk. So we're going to go channel 3, and we're going to put that one down. As you can see, there is a change there, but not very much of a change. It's really like quite a sort of subtle change. To me, again, that's not really what I'm looking for. I want something that's going to be, you know, quite obvious when you put it onto the map. Otherwise, what's the point? You know, if you can't barely see it, then to me it seems a little bit pointless. But anyway, whatever. So we've gone down to our caulk. So the next one is our compost. So again, we need to go to channel 4 for that one, and we're going to put that one down. And again, to me, that one looks really, really nice. I quite like that one, so I'm going to stick with that one. Okay, so now we've done all of that, I'm going to go ahead and save. So it's best to, when you come into the map, I should have done that previously, but when you come into the map, don't click save until you're happy with what you've done, because if you click save, everything in your i3D that we were looking at in here in Notepad++ will then be changed and updated. So don't click save until you're happy with what's being displayed on the screen. If something doesn't work, then just exit out, just click exit, do not save. Because once you click save, the actual engine will update the map01.i3D, and it will rearrange and renumber everything in your map01.i3D, all of the numbers that we added in. So these ones up here where I added in the 100 above previous to the original number, all of these will be changed. They will be adapted to better fit in to the map01.i3D. Once you've changed them, they will be much harder to find again. They won't be impossible, for sure, but they will be much harder to find. Whereas if now I find that something isn't working the way I want it to, I can easily just close down the map, do not save it, go back into the map01.i3d and find the information exactly where I put it in previously. So the file IDs will be right at the top, numbered exactly how I did them before. Material IDs will be at the bottom of the material ID section with exactly the same numbers, and all of the foliage multi-layers and sub-layers will be there exactly where I left them before, numbered exactly how I did them at the previous section of the video. So it's much easier to change things if you find that something isn't working. Just close it down, don't save them out, don't save it in Giants Editor, and then make your changes. Come back in, test it again. Once you're happy with what you've got, then you can click save, but only click save once you are happy with it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually close. I'm going to click no, I don't want to save it. I'm going to minimize that again. Because I don't like a couple of the textures that we have, I want to change them. And I really like some of the textures from the original GMK mod. So what I want to do here is have a play with those and see if I can get them to come across into the new GMKFC mod. So if we remember from the earlier on in the video, we put these into our foliage folder. So if we come into here, we've got our compost, fertilizer, caulk, manure and manure liquid. So I want to change a couple of those. The compost one I'm happy with, I'm perfectly fine with that one. The fertilizer one, if we open that up, let's have a look at that one. There's nothing there really, you can't really see anything at all. So I might have a play around with that and change that one, we'll see. The caulk one, again, there's very little there that I can see. I want to be able to see it a little bit better than that. The manure one I was okay with, I'm alright with that one. So what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's one more somewhere. 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. No, that's right. That's okay. Miscounted. Okay, so what I want to change here, I'm going to leave the compost. We'll have a look at the fertilizer. So let's come over to the original Ghoulie Mist mod pack and just see what textures we have in this particular one. So I'm going to go into this particular folder here. I'm going to go into this one, foliage layers. So in here all we have is our caulk, manure and manure solid. Oops, I think I actually just copied that folder into there. So let's take that out of there. Clicking too fast. So might not be able to change the fertilizer one, but that's okay. I'm going to leave that because at the end of the day it's a water or a liquid, if you know what I mean. So you're going to see very little anyway being displayed on the ground. So I'm alright with that. I'm okay with that one. We'll leave that as it is. So the ones I'm going to be playing around with here is just the caulk, the manure liquid and the manure solid. So if we open these ones up and have a look and see what these look like. So that's quite a nice one. I like that one. And we'll have a look at this one. Yes, I quite like that one. So what I want to do here, before I continue on, I'm going to actually copy over or move this one. So we've got our foliage caulk home diffuse. So I'm going to move that over into that folder. And then I'm going to copy this one, bring that over, and paste it into there like so. Then what I need to do is change the name of it. So I'm going to do that and change the name of this one to the foliage caulk home diffuse. Then I'm going to open it in paint.net, and then I'm going to go save, and we want to save this as a DXT5 with mipmap, and I'm going to go OK, and then I'm going to close it down. Then what I'm going to do is open the map up again in Giants Editor. So again, just bear with me while that opens up. So again, finding an area that was going to display what we want in a much better fashion than on a field perhaps, just for the actual Giants Editor display so we can see it really clearly. Once you're in game it will show up much better, but in the Giants Editor if you start putting it on a field it doesn't show up quite as well as it does in game, at least in my experience. So I'm going to come back down to the one thing I want to mention here. If we actually look in the console down the bottom here, and if you don't have this open, just go Window and then Console. if you look into the here and there are errors and warnings, you've done something wrong. So this will give you an indication if there is something out of place. So just keep an eye on that at all times and just make sure that there are no errors and warnings and things like that in there as well. Okay, so again, I'm going to come down to my list here, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So Colk is going to be foliage channel number 4. So I'm going to click on my terrain foliage and I'm going to put it in, and it's compost. Fantastic. So did I do that wrong? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Oh, that's because it starts at 0. It always catches me out. So we've actually got 3. So let's get rid of that. We don't want that. And we go to 3. And there we go. I think that looks a bit better. You may disagree, but I think that looks better than what we had before. It's much clearer on the screen. We can see it in a much better fashion. It kind of matches the actual, this one a little bit better. Our fertilizer, or whatever that was, fertilizer. I think that matches in quite nicely to the fertilizer texture as well. Perhaps a little bit blocky, a little bit squarey, more blocked off or whatever else. So you might want to have a look at that. But for me, it's not really that much of a problem. I'm okay with that. I'm alright with that. So have a play around. Don't just think that you're stuck with the textures that you get with the mod. You can find some different ones and change them if you so choose to. Okay, so again, I'm not going to save it because I want to have a play. Actually, what I will do is just have a look to see which one I was going to change. Manure liquid. Okay, so if we actually do that one, so we've got, if I start 0, 1, so let's do 1 and paint that down. See, that wasn't very sort of, you can see it's changing for sure, but there's not really much there, is there? In my opinion, it doesn't give me much of a representation of what I want to see. So again, I'm going to go close. No, I don't want to save. I'm going to go back into my foliage. I'm going to find the manure liquid one, and I'm going to come over to here. So we've got 2 here. We've got manure liquid 1. So let's open that one up. Okay, that's not too bad. Might go with that one. Let's have a look at what this one is. That's the one. Delete that one. That was my testing one I did earlier. So let's open this one up. That's not too bad. Let's see what that one looks like. And it will be a bit of trial and error here to see what you want to get out of this. So we're going to drag that one across. I'm going to make a copy of that and put that into this folder. I'm going to then change the name of it. So we'll copy that name, bring that over and put it into here like so. And again, I'm going to open this up in Notepad++. I'm going to go save DXT5 with mipmap. It's very important that you do that because I believe these ones aren't DXT5 with mipmap. There's something else. We could also have a look at that. Let's have a look. So what have I got here? DXT3 with mipmap. Might make a difference, it might not, but it's always, in my opinion, worth changing it, because if we look at the one we dragged over from the other map, this is a DXT5 with mipmap. Slightly different size, but the size is not really that important. The problem is when you start to resize some of these, if I show you what I mean, this is a 256 by 128, and if I then go into resize and change this to 512 by 512, yuck, it distorts so badly that it then might not necessarily give you what you're looking for. Again, that'll be on you to have a bit of a play around with an experiment. Right, so I'm just going to close that down and we'll go back into the map. We'll just do this one more time and then we'll go into game and actually test it out. So if we come back in here again, we're going to come to our foliage layers again. We're going to choose our, again, it doesn't really matter, but we've got 0, 1. So I need number 1, which is for our manure liquid. I'm going to go into my terrain foliage paint mode and we're going to paste it down. And I think that looks a bit better. Again, you may agree or disagree, but I think that looks better than what we had before, which was hardly visible on the map at all. So, like I said before, don't think that you're stuck with the textures that you can get you can play around with those and choose some other ones that might work slightly better for you and give you a better visual representation. Like I said before, at the end of the day, this is all about visuals. The actual, I believe the way it worked in Farm Sim 15, if I recall, you sprayed it onto the map and then you actually cultivated it in to actually fertilize the area. Whereas in Farm Sim 17, as soon as you spray it on, it fertilizes it automatically. And then it's just the visual representation that you're actually getting. So, you know, it's a slightly different sort of scenario to the way that worked in 15. But the fact that we have it is a bonus in my opinion. I really liked it in 15, and I think that this is something that's going to be a great addition. Hopefully, you know, for whatever reason and whatever problems they have with version 1 that I, like I said before, have read on the forums, hopefully whatever that is will be fixed. It's possible that what I just explained there was how it worked in 15, where you actually put it down and then had to cultivate it in for certain types of the fertilizers, like your liquid manure possibly, or your solid manure, where you actually sprayed it onto the field and then had to cultivate it in to actually activate the fertilization stage. That may be the thing that's causing the problem, and that's what they're trying to fix or have fixed, but isn't available as yet. But again, you know, for me this works, so it gives me my visual representation of whatever I'm putting onto the field, so I'm going to go with that. Okay, so now that I'm happy with all of the different parts here, we can just go through those again. So we've got that's our fertilizer, and then we have our manure liquid, which we've just added in, which is this one. Then we have our manure, which is again, that's an original texture from this mod. And then we have our caulk, which is not an original, that's one I've just added in. I think that looks quite good. Again, you can choose whatever you want. And then we're going to go to our last one, which is our compost. Again, I think that one looks pretty good, so I'm going to stick with that. Okay, so all of those are now working for me as I intend them, as I want them to be displayed on the map in game. So now I'm comfortable with all of that. I'm confident that I've got it all set up okay. I've got no warnings in my console. I can click save. We can now close down the Giants Editor session, and I'm going to put that up there out of the way. Okay, so now that we've got all of that set up in there, I've got all my scripts set up. I've changed the path file names, or added in the path file name for the actual mod itself in my mod desk. Again, that's an important part not to forget, because otherwise all of this won't work. So I'm going to go ahead and put that into my mods folder, and then I'm going to get into game. I'll get some machinery up together and whatever else, and then we'll test it out and make sure it all works, and yeah, see what we get in game. So I'll see you in a little bit once we get into the game. Okay, so here we are now in game, and I've got a few tractors all set up here. It took me quite a while to get all this together, but here we are. So we've got lime to start with. That's the one we're going to do now. So we'll open up the rear of the spreader here. Now I've set this up so that it's on a manure spreader. You could set it up on a normal fertilizer spreader or whatever else. Now obviously lime and compost are going to be map specific. If the map isn't set up for it, then obviously this won't work, and luckily the actual script and whatever else won't cause any conflicts if you don't have those particular field types on the map or whatever else. So alright, so we're just going to pull forward now with this particular tractor. We'll press B and we have our line being spread onto the map. Now I've already done a test on this at the other end of the map, just so I'm honest and upfront with everybody, and I did notice that this particular texture was blocky. I thought about changing it, but I figured no, I'll leave it in so I can actually show you what it looks like. You may want to have a play around with that excuse me, and then change it to something different. I didn't realise it was going to come out quite as blocky as this. I did mention earlier on it did seem quite blocky when we were playing around Giants Editor, but the actual texture is quite nice, but the actual way it gets led down onto the field doesn't really look as good as I thought it was going to. But you know, I wanted to really just show you that you're not limited to the textures that are available on the HofBergmann map. You can change them, so that was really my point. Might be worth just trying those first and seeing if they are adequate for whatever you need, and then go from there. For me, they weren't really visually representative enough. You know, they didn't show up quite as well as I wanted to on the map itself or on the field, so I felt that I wanted to change them. This potentially wasn't the right choice. I might change that. Actually, I probably would change that to something else. Perhaps maybe one of the other ones from the original Goody Mists mod pack from 15. The other one that is also available might be a better option. Don't know. I'm not going to try it, but you may want to have a play around with those and just see what you get out of it. So we'll move on to the next one, which I believe is manure. Yep. So again, we'll open the back up on this one, and we'll pull forward into the field and then turn it on, and there we go. We do have our new texture now. Obviously with manure you do have a texture already available, which is the gold flecks that show up. I'll show you these gold flecks, but we now have the addition of this new texture with the GMKFC as well, and I think they do blend in really nicely together, so for me that works quite well. So again, you know, you may need to play around with some of the textures there, but I think this particular setup looks really nice. They work really well together. Now obviously there is something that I will show you once we cultivate over this a bit later on, what changes there, but we'll do that in a bit. So we'll move on to the next one, which is our fertilizer, our solid fertilizer. So if we again pull into the field and press B to turn that on, we then get our fertilizer, solid fertilizer texture then show up as well. So there's that. So we'll turn that off, and if we have a look at that, that looks quite nice actually. So potentially you could use this same texture for your lime as well, and you know, just play it off like that. Maybe put it into paint.net, tweak it a little bit, but you know, again, it's all sort of experimentation and playing around and getting the textures that work for you. So like I said, I mean, I may take this texture and then use this again for the lime. You know what you're spraying because it's got it listed in the tractor, or you know, in the HUD. The textures are there really just to give you a visual representation of whatever you're putting onto the field. Now obviously the liquid fertilizer, which is what we've got here, isn't a texture, is not represented by the GMKFC mod at all, but I wanted to show you that it does still work. It's not going to break anything by putting this in. You're not going to lose the functionality of your liquid sprayer. So again, I'm just going to turn this on, and we do have our texture there. You can see the texture of the field changes when we use our liquid fertilizer, so it's not going to break anything. You're not going to, you know, again, as I say, lose any functionality there of any original sort of setup that you've got, but there's no actual additional visual representation with the GMKFC mod because it's not part and parcel of it. But anyway, so we'll move on to the next one, which will be our liquid manure or slurry. So again, we'll pull into the field and we'll press B to activate that, and we now get our texture. This is one that I brought over earlier on. I showed in the video from the GMK from 15, and I quite like that texture. It looks quite nice. I felt that it gives a better visual representation than the one from the HofBergmann map, but again, you know, you need to have a play around with those and just work with whatever textures you're comfortable with and what gives you the best sort of visuals for your gameplay, game style, whatever else. So we'll move on to the compost, our last one. So we'll turn that one on. Whoops, better open it up first, and we'll turn that one on, and there we go. So we have that one as well. So we'll stop that one there, and I'll show you that one. I really like this one. This one looks really nice. Gives you really good visual representation of the compost. So we now have all of the GMKFC textures and a few additions there on the map. So what we'll do next is we'll jump into the big bud. Whoops, went past it. Typical. And we'll just get this fired up, and I just want to show you that they all will cultivate into the ground and then disappear. So there's no, you know, no worries there. They're not going to suddenly be left on the map forever and ever. Once you've sprayed them down, they will actually cultivate in. So we'll open this up and we'll lower that down. And if I then go across the actual compost here, you can see the compost texture disappears, and we are then left with our just fertilized texture on the actual field itself. So There we go, that's that one. I will go across the others just so you can see, because I want to show you what happens with the manure. Now obviously with the manure gold fleck sort of texture, that is an in-game vanilla sort of texture setup. We can see the slurry one there, or liquid manure one, disappears. Not going to make any difference to the liquid manure, liquid fertilizer, because there's no texture there anyway. We have our solid fertilizer texture, which is obviously disappearing there, so that's fantastic. Now if we come across to the manure one, you can see that the actual textures for the GMKFC disappear, but we're left with the gold flecks. That's a standard in-game texture, so that's not going to really, that you get that anyway, so there's no adverse effects there. So if we then come across to our last one, which is our line, we'll come across this one, and that one also disappears. Fantastic. And if I then jump out of the tractor so it's a bit quieter, I'll bring up the in-game menu here, and we'll come across to our fertilizer section. You can see at the top of the field I did a test run. If we come down to the bottom here, you can see that it has shown up as being fertilized for each individual fertilization section, whether it be compost, liquid manure, or whatever. So you do still get all your fertilizations and whatever else, and they are represented there, so that's fantastic. Now I've obviously got this, or maybe not so obvious, but I've actually got this set up as 1 times fertilization, so you may need to have a bit of a play around and see how this affects your 2 times and 3 times fertilizations and whatever else. But for the actual visual representation, I think it's not too bad. Again, this, as I said before, this one's a little bit blocky, so might need to change that for the line, but have a play around with that. It's really more about getting the actual mod working and into the game. The textures are just changing a few DDS files really easy, like I showed earlier on in when we were on the desktop. So there we go, GMKFC all into the map, working perfectly fine. One thing to note with your when you're setting it up for your foliage multi-layers, just check your potato and sugar beet home block shape ID, change the all of the GMKFC stuff to match the home block shape ID for your potatoes and sugar beets, and you should be good. I don't know why it's set to 1 on the HofBergmann map, because looking at that particular block shape ID, it doesn't match what the potato and sugar beet home is. So how he got it working on that particular map, or how they got it working, I do not know. But after playing around and thinking about it a little bit, I decided that changing it to the potato and sugar beet for your map you're going to be bringing it into, overcome the issues that I was having with it, and how to get it working. So yeah, there we go, it's all working. Hopefully I've explained it in a way that can be followed quite easily. So thanks very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.